This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Good evening. Welcome to the Easthampton City Council and School Committee Convention meeting. Today is May 18th. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast by eMedia on Charter Channel 193 and live streaming on their webpage, easthamptonmedia.org. Council and School Committee members are gathered in hybrid on the order extended by the Governor until March 2025, which allow us to do so. Thank you. This meeting is now called to order. Barbara.
Connie Denham. Here. Salem Derby.
Present.
Omar Gomez.
Here.
JP Kaczynski.
Here.
Dave Munier. Tom Peak.
Here.
Brad Riley.
Here.
Dan Rist.
Here.
Owen Zarrett.
Present.
Maren Goldstein.
Here.
Megan Harvey. Here. Ben Hersey.
Here.
Cindy Kwinzinski.
Here.
Nicole LaChapelle.
We'll take a motion to approve the minutes of May 10, 2023.
Move to approve the minutes. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of May 10, 2023. Are there further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Abstain.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Dave Munier. Sorry. Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Owen Zarrett.
Aye.
Maren Goldstein.
Aye.
Megan Harvey.
Aye.
Ben Hersey.
Aye.
Cindy Kwinzinski.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight.
I got a little late.
Can you please mute
I start
yourself?
every morning. I have to start my morning with toast. You phone.
That's fair.
A good choice.
Good choice.
Can you please, if you're participating remote, can you please mute yourself? Thank you. Again, thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. The rules are, like we stated before, each candidate is going to have 5 minutes to speak to the councilors and the school committee members. Councilors and school committee members are going to allow to make one question per city council or school committee. That question is going to be at the end. We are calling the candidates by the way that they bring their names with the cover letter. So that's the reason Sean Bate is the first one. The reason is Sean Bate was the first one to bring the name with a cover letter. Staying that, I don't know if any other councilor have any questions before we start, or we start listening to the candidates. Good. We need someone to do the clock. Wanna do it?
Yeah, sure.
And when you go, I'm gonna call your name, but when you go to the podium, can you please state your name and address for the record? We're gonna start with, are you ready?
Give me 1 second. And can I just say something really quick? If you hear the timer, finish up your sentence and then be done. Don't make us ask you more than once, please. Thank you.
Sean Bates,
Up here?
please.
Synchronized watches. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sean Bates, 16 Munska Drive. I'm the opener tonight. I want to thank members of both bodies for their service. I want to thank the audience in person and at home. Your attention matters. Your eyeballs matter. I want to thank the prospective candidates, especially want to shout out my Munska Drive neighbor for getting involved. All I'm saying is that I don't see any other street names listed twice on this list. My wife and Elizabeth and I moved to Western Mass from upstate New York in order for me to attend grad school at UMass. We made our way as 20-somethings, renting and working outside of the town we lived in, no long-term plans. Today, however, we are new homeowners in Easthampton as of 2020, and as of March 2022, new parents. Easthampton is our home by choice, and we are proud to live and to be able to work in our community. We are putting down roots. My wife works as a speech-language pathologist at Mountain View School. I'm an adjunct professor of English and writing, currently at Westfield State and Holyoke Community College in the English department, but primarily in the Gateway to College program, a dual enrollment placement for high schoolers which pulls from districts all over the region, including Easthampton. The community at HCC and Gateway has given me opportunities, and in return, I am called to serve. I'm a current member of the Shared Governance Budget Advisory Committee representing adjuncts. In our Easthampton community, I am coming up on 1 year serving first as a corporator and now as a board member of the Easthampton Public Library Association. And as many of you know, it's an exciting time to be involved in the library, not to mention the Emily's Friends Spring Book Sale happening at the library this Saturday at 9 a.m. But it's also an exciting time to be in Easthampton. The signs of positive change are all around us. I'm relieved to see us do the heavy lifting of paving our downtown streets and building new schools. I grew up in a town in upstate New York where the vote to renew and build always failed. As a kid, then it felt like the community viewed my district's outdated resources and literally crumbling infrastructure from the position of, it was good enough for us, why change? Not so in Easthampton. But I can resonate with individuals who are waking up to a changing Easthampton and are concerned. But as someone who has worked with 16, 17, 18, and 19-year-olds throughout and through to the other side of the pandemic, I reassure you the kids are all right. But the Easthampton they wake up to is the only one they've ever known. And they have a savviness from which we can learn. They know how to talk about gender. They know that language matters and that language changes. They know that the internet is forever, and whatever you post may follow your professional life. Many of them give me grace and forgiveness when I make a mistake, and my students are learning how to advocate for themselves and others when what someone has said makes them uncomfortable. What they do not know, however, is the hard work of these organizations, these committees, and these bodies. I am disappointed in and frustrated with the handling of this situation by the school committee and former candidates. However, I am thankful for the individuals who have served and those that remain to continue the job. I want to differentiate the work of these offices from that of the individuals. Anyone can be angry on Facebook, but few will turn it into activism. I don't want to deal in public shame. I desire to be a part of the change in the makeup of this committee. I want to focus on the task, to do the job, and to not adjudicate the past. I want to be on the school committee to be one of the faces of change in this new Easthampton. When looking for a superintendent, my ideal candidate is one who is pragmatic and forward-thinking. My ideal candidate will be familiar with the lived experiences of our students and our community, especially historically and currently marginalized groups. The type of person who considers the human resources, the workers of this district, as our #1 asset. My ideal candidate would not be satisfied with, that's how we've always done it, but would not seek the new for its own sake. For me, this is not about grand narratives or scapegoats or culture wars or conspiracy theories. This body has a job to do. The district needs an executive. Easthampton needs to move forward, and I'd like to be a part of that. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Heather? I don't see Heather here. Sarah? No.
Hello, everyone. Oh, I forgot about this thing.
That's fine.
I'm very short. Good evening. My name is Sarah Hunter. I live at 8 Mayor Street in Easthampton. I've lived in Easthampton since 2013. I work for the Department of Developmental Services, and I've been working there for just over 8 years. Prior to that, I worked at Autism Connections, which at the time was in Easthampton and Eastworks. I have a 7-year-old son who attends Mountain View, and my wife is an ESL teacher in Westfield. I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia. Fly, Eagles, fly. Go Sixers. You know, for better for worse. I moved here for college. I've been here ever since. If you take anything from my remarks tonight, I want you to think of two things: the importance of vision and the importance of process. You can have a great vision for a community, but if you don't know the process and how to get things done, it doesn't matter. You can know everything there is to know about process, but if you don't have a vision, you're not going to end up with something that you're happy with. My vision for our public schools is that they are and remain a place where every child is valued, where everyone's contributions are appreciated, where employees feel respected and heard, and where children can grow up thinking of themselves as part of a greater whole. Students should graduate from 12th grade not just with passing test scores, but with an understanding of themselves as citizens, as change makers, as critical thinkers, and as people whose perspectives are valued and a member of a team. I served on the school committee from 2015 to 2017, which is where much of my understanding of the process comes from. Process creates structure for how we solve problems and how we make sure problems are solved as fairly as possible. In my experience, many problems that arise in situations in which groups of people are trying to work together come down to the process not being followed correctly. In my vision of the school committee, I see a group of people working together within the structure of process that aligns with the law and aligns with what we as a city has agreed is the way in which we would like to be governed. In a new superintendent, I'm looking for someone who is able to balance the needs of the community as a whole with the needs of the individual student. This is a really tricky job, and there are times where the needs of individual students and the needs of the community may appear initially to be at odds with each other. I would want a candidate knowledgeable of the landscape of education in our state more broadly, who would be able to seek out opportunities for additional resources in our district. I would also want someone who understands the necessity of productive conflict in relationship with the school committee. I would want to work with a superintendent who would be able to accept constructive criticism, communicate clearly and honestly with a wide variety of stakeholders, understand and implement statewide education policy and law, and be a leader for our whole community. My area of expertise is special education. In particular, my biggest concern is that all children are taught high-quality, evidence-based academics so that every single student who leaves our schools knows how to read, communicate, express themselves, and make meaningful choices for the rest of their lives. Self-advocacy should also be a key component of any educational plan for a student with a disability. I also believe that students with disabilities belong everywhere in the life of the school. I want to see those students on our swim team, in our school plays, going on field trips, at dance and at dances and homecoming. Regardless of their differences, every child and family should feel that the entire school community is open and accessible to them, and that they are an essential part of that community too. Additionally, I feel it's very important to have the support of organized labor as much as possible, and I would like to hear from teachers and staff frequently regarding what their vision is and what their concerns are as well. We are very lucky in Easthampton to have a strong and well-organized teachers union. Working conditions for teachers happen to be learning conditions for our students, so it behooves all of us to listen to their concerns. I've been really impressed with the way that Easthampton has weathered the transition to the new school this year, combining 4 schools into one. This was a really big deal, and I feel like it's been a little bit dwarfed by all the media coverage about other things in our district. So I want to get it on the record so that people hear it. This has been an amazing transition. There have been bumps in the road, but this was really, really hard, and I'm amazed at what I've seen. Everybody has really pulled it together. I'm so glad that my son goes to school here, and I feel so lucky to be a part of this community. Sorry, I just got a little lost. Every school district has drama, and I know because I've worked with lots of them. There's never a superintendent search that goes off without a hitch. Not every district has the heart that we have here, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to offer to serve the remainder of this term. I've always found a source of hope in the engagement of the people of the city, the way in which adults in our community value our kids, and the ways in which we've been able to be creative and work together in achieving our collective visions. All throughout the pandemic, I've had the words of author and activist Arundhati Roy running through my head. Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a still morning, I can hear her breathing. Thank you, counselors and school committee members, for your consideration. It's good to see you all.
Thank you. Catherine?
Good evening. My name is Kathy Wazinski. I live at 22 Overlook Drive. I am here to talk about the positions that are available. I have served this community as a Girl Scout leader, as a soccer coach, and as a special education advocate in my job for over 30 years. I've worked as a program director and managed budgets within that system and managed staff supervision as well. As an educational advocate, I've worked with many families from diverse backgrounds and worked with many of the school districts within Hampshire County and found that this one was the easiest one to work with overall for special ed services. And I'm very proud of the services that Easthampton provides to students with special needs. I think it's really important for families to feel heard. And at this moment, lots of families are not feeling heard within this school district, and I would like to help that happen, both within our school committee and our larger community. I've managed and developed budgets and grant programs within developmental services and also for children in after-school programs. In regards to the school superintendent search, I am looking for a candidate that is outside of the district that will help the district figure out what the conflict has been between some of the teachers and administrators. The reports that we have heard from many teachers is that they have been pressured not to engage in this process, and that's really inappropriate. So I think that someone outside of the district would be better able to assess that situation and address it. I think it's really important as school committee members that we work with many individuals within the community that feel their voices are not being heard. And I hope to be someone that can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura?
Hello, everyone. Does that work?
Yes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Laura Scott. I'm at 19 Plain Street in the city. I'm going to keep this brief. I know we have a long evening ahead of us. I want to start as a reminder to all 10 of us that it's refreshing to see such a large amount of interest. I know one of the issues in the city are vacancies throughout boards and often uncontested elections. So a reminder to all of us that only 2 will be selected from this process. The remaining 8 would be welcome to pull papers later this summer and run again for elections this November. Setting that aside. So I'm here tonight to offer my name for consideration. I've been following closely what's happened throughout the past several months with some concern and great interest. And it's my position that I think this time calls for some steady leadership, experience, and an attempt to kind of restore some of the public confidence in public officials and in our school administration. So that would be my top priority. As I did when I served on the school committee for 2 terms prior, I think the top 2 priorities would be the value of our faculty and staff and the value of all individual learners, their diversity of needs, and the diversity of their strengths. My position when I served previously was to approach the job with several thoughts in mind. The first was always to be very thoroughly prepared ahead of every meeting, to understand issues before you're sitting there in the limelight taking concerns from citizens, from faculty and staff, and from parents. That then, of course, leads to be productive, a thoughtful, deliberative discussion. We often had differences of ideas, but I found we were nearly always successful, had best outcomes when those differences were framed within mutual respect for one another as public servants. We also practiced transparency throughout the process. I found, we're often faced with making difficult choices in public office, and if you are well prepared and if you have thoughtful discussion, you can then defend even the difficult choices that you have to make. You can stand behind them after the fact and answer questions that are bound to arise. Not every decision satisfies every stakeholder, so you have to be able to stand behind the decisions that you make. And lastly, as with every school committee member, there is this sometimes tenuous dance of both collaboration with school administration and also it is their job to hold accountable school administration. So that requires both forming relationships and also being able to to take a step back and to recognize shortcomings and mistakes and to work toward positive outcomes with mutual respect, transparency throughout, kind of a pervasive theme. So again, my appreciation to 9 other community members stepping forward, really encouraged by a lot of the statements they made tonight, and I think it won't be an easy decision for all of you to make. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Timothy?
Hello, everyone. Timothy St. John, 178 Hendrick Street. So, why do I want to join the school committee? I struggled with this question. I've wrestled with how to approach the answer. What is the joint council looking for in a candidate? What does the community want in a committee member? And how do I fit in this puzzle? Do I have the educational and/or life experience to draw from that would allow me to contribute to the upcoming conversations facing the committee? Do I have the right shoes? Do I want to volunteer myself for a position that is bound to be subject to more than its share of public scrutiny, attacks, and criticism? Do I want this for my family? There's part of me, and it's not a negligible portion, that answers those last questions clearly no. I love my family very much, and I don't want to take any actions that would put them in a position to be viewed as anything but the absolute treasures that they are. So here we are, and I'm asking for an interim seat on the school committee in these arduous times. My family has been in this community for some time. My wife was born and raised here on Hendrick Street and later Everett Street. The community I know was here with her when she lost her father suddenly and unexpectedly in the night. Her father, who would ride his horse into town to court his future wife, Angela's mother. They were here again just a few short years later when her mother began her years-long struggle with cancer that would eventually spread to her brain and slowly take her as well. I'm indebted to that community, and I'm certain we do not always agree on everything, but we do agree on one thing, and that is that love should guide us. These are good people. When my son was born, I was diagnosed with cancer of my own, and Easthampton was with us again. You carried us along with you, making sure that we knew that we were loved and that everything would be as okay as it could. I'm indebted to that community. 6 years later on, I was partially paralyzed by a second round of cancer, this time in my brain. But the community again, our friends, supported us and carried us along with them. And it was more than I deserved, but luckily I married well. So the community that is so selflessly supported my family through so many of our challenges has found itself facing challenges of its own. There's work to be done here, and I would be honored to be a part of it. Can I help? I believe that I can. I know that there are limitless opinions on our current situation, and that not all of them are expressed constructively, and that's okay. I mean, it's not always okay, but it seems to be part of the human condition. I'm a soccer coach, a baseball coach, a school and community volunteer, and the father of a Mountain View student. I served 5 years as a residential counselor for children who were wards of the state, either pending adoption or working with families towards reunification. I was also then a lead preschool teacher before abandoning my burgeoning professional ambitions to pursue the muse of rock and roll dreams. I recently served on the superintendent search committee, which speaks only to my limited but relevant experience with such committee structures. I'm here to ask to be involved in supporting the committee and its most important work that a group can commit itself to, shaping the world that we will hand to our children. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Albert?
Good evening. Thank you, board and community. My name is Al Sanchez, and I live at 286 Main Street, and my wife is Cassie Sanchez, and she's a really smart, highly educated person. We have 2 kids in the school district. I believe, first of all, I'm really grateful. Again, I just want to reiterate, there's people here that are just really smart and qualified to be candidates as well. I'm confident you guys will find one of us do a good job. I know that the public is concerned about some of the recent controversies and whatnot. I know that there's some uncertainty in the parents and in the community. I know that there's a lot of other variables. We're coming out of a pandemic, and so there's all those adjustments to be made. And also the current political situation creates a certain divisiveness at large, and so then there's people in the community are kind of a little triggered and everything, so I get that. But I also believe strongly that to volunteer in the community, and that's why I'm throwing my name in the my name out there. I've volunteered for many other organizations, including Big Brothers Big Sisters. I've been a high school substitute teacher. I'm also a veteran, so I put myself out there in the community and whatnot. And so I just believe that trying to choose a superintendent, it's going to require a person that has good leadership skills, critical thinking, transparency, and just all those great qualities that'll make that person help lead us into the future. And I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. Linda? That's
Good
fine.
evening. That's fine, okay. I'm Linda Broadhurst. I live at 12 Lawler Drive. I've been a resident of Easthampton for over 25 years. When I moved here, our city was just still a town. And then we became a city. Fun fact, actually, it was the third time I moved to Easthampton. I'd been here twice before, and you kind of figure third time's a charm. I'm staying and raised my family here. I would like to be considered for a seat on the school committee because I want to do my part in helping our students succeed. It's no secret that there have been some struggles lately, and I believe we can get past this and favorably move forward. I'm willing to work together and show everyone the respect they deserve. We cannot lose the goal of what this community is tasked with doing, and that is ensuring every child has a path to success. All students of every ability, gender, sexual orientation, and religious beliefs have a right to support, and as a school committee, we should make sure they all receive what they need. I realize there are several pieces and responsibilities involved in becoming a school member, such as writing and maintaining policies to guide the district, approving and monitoring the school budget, and to hire and evaluate a superintendent. Currently, you are in the process of hiring an interim superintendent, which is of utmost importance since that position will be vacated in June. I'm willing to put in the work and time needed to make sure the candidates currently in the running are thoroughly interviewed and given the opportunity to show they are qualified to fill this position. There are a variety of things a superintendent is responsible for, and all of them are critical for success. One thing, however, I'm interested in is how they will handle bringing our community, teachers, and students together. There will always be challenges, and how you resolve them can make all the difference in their outcome. I was part of the superintendent search when we hired Dr. LeClaire in 2018. At that time, I was the parent of a high school student. My children have all graduated. However, I still have several young relatives attending both of our schools. Being on the search committee was a lot of work, but it was an important task and one that I did not take lightly. In closing, I'm here asking to be elected to your committee. This is not an interview, so as such, I will only answer questions that you ask of everyone. You need to be fair to all of us and the citizens of Easthampton by treating everyone equally. I am by no means refusing to answer your questions. I just expect you to ask each of us the same one. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Luis?
My name is Louise Jacob. I live in Holyoke Street in Easthampton. Sorry, obviously. I can't remember. Is there a third part? Okay, no. I know. Okay. My main interest and my main point, sort of what got me here, is that I do think it's important to choose candidates when we have to choose the interim superintendent with the requisite professional competence and experience, but it's equally important to ensure that all children in our school feel secure, are treated fairly, and are able to turn to qualified, unbiased adults when they need support and help. And I've probably been going on around here about that for about 5 years, which is about what I've been here. But it didn't happen. It still doesn't happen. I think we've got, and it's basic justice. We've got to do it. Okay, I'll go from there and to quickly say that some people have said I'm a, whatever you call it, I've worked with Akin a lot, which stands for a knee is not enough. And I've been asked, why are you so affiliated by various people? Why are you so affiliated with such a divisive organization, etc.? I don't think it's divisive. I think we've got kids in the schools as well as other people throughout the community that actually need that. And I would point out that it's the only BIPOC-led organization in the city. And those who, like, I don't know why does that seems to mean that people don't listen to it but automatically label it divisive. And I do think that's a problem. My next bit was that we all need to work towards a community where we overcome our collective terror for headline grabbing. And I don't know what it is about the water or whatever in Easthampton, but this keeps happening. And I think we need to focus on improving things instead. I can skip most of this. I will say that, I mean, most of my school's experience, it's in my resume. I probably should have translated it all, but people are welcome to ask questions because I don't know how much of the 5 minutes left, but it's all very foreign. It's in England, it was in the same language. It does mean that I'm familiar with a lot of the issues, with a lot of the processes. I'm familiar with what's been shown on the internet, which is a lot over the last 5 years. So I think I'm reasonably up to speed, but that's what I can say about that. I'm kind of very concerned over the controversy of the previous candidate, previous selection of, need a glass of water, of the interim superintendent, mostly because it's exposed to another division. There are people who were not happy with the first choice from the beginning. I wasn't for a different reason it's been obvious, but I'll give you in a minute. But we've got another division here because there's something in the schools, something in the choices that they're missing. Now, my problem was Mr. Vita's sort of tolerance of the racism, and people said, no, this wasn't him, and that's not an excuse that I think would make a child who was feeling they were being treated unfairly, particularly confident to go to his office, for example. So that's where I'm coming from. But at the same time, we've got a lot of people who've been signing petitions for him. And I don't think they're all doing it from a race, or I'm refusing to believe that they're all doing it from a racist base. So there's something else there that he represented that he thinks, that I think that people thought he could offer our schools that's missing now. And I think in the brief period that the interim appointment for an interim appointment would last, I think we have to work a lot to figure out what that was. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I want to say thank you to everybody. Definitely, we have a tough decision at our next meeting. I want to remind everybody the rules that we set at our first meeting. Each member of the convention may have the opportunity to ask one question and the candidates will have 1 minute to answer the question. As soon as the candidate is on the podium, if any other member of the convention want to make a question, we have to do it because that was the rule that we set up at the first meeting. We're going to have the candidate there, and if everybody have a question for that candidate, we're going to do it at that time. Any of the member of the convention have any questions to any candidate? No one? Mariam, sorry, I didn't see you. School committee, Goldstein?
Well, so they understand process. My understanding is each of them are going to come up now, and we'll go around to ask questions.
No, because
just calling people up.
Just calling people if we don't know if member of the convention have questions for everybody.
Okay.
I mean, I can go through the names and we decide if we have questions to them. It will work. Does any member of the convention have any question to Sean? School committee member Goldstein. Sean, can you please go to the podium?
So thank you, Sean.
1 minute. Let's set up the clock. I'm sorry.
Okay. 1 minute starts after I finish asking the question.
Correct. Correct. Yes, we want to be fair.
Agreed.
Probably your question is going to be more than 1 minute.
That's okay.
Are you, Councilor Say?
I'm ready.
So given if you are chosen by this body to represent Easthampton Public Schools on the school committee, your first task will be to interview and vote on the interim superintendent. What is the most important quality you will seek for in the candidates to help you decide your vote?
I think that the most important quality I'm looking for is the approach to the myriad responsibilities, the idea that being able to communicate a competency and understanding of the kind of like leading the orchestra of the district, the idea that the song and dance never ends. We've heard a lot about the 24-hour job kind of thing. I think that it has to come across that it's not just an on paper kind of thing. I feel like it's an in the room kind of thing. But also, second to that would be the ability to admit what you do not know and the wherewithal to go seek out the answer.
Any other member? Councilor Peak.
Mr. Bates, if in your experience with the library board or anywhere else, but I think this is a good example, do you have any insights into how you prefer to handle conflicts and disagreements within the context of a multi-member body?
I can't say we have any library conflicts right now. It's pretty much all gangbusters over there. But I would say that in conflicts I've been a part of, the ultimate thing I search for, the questions I would be following up on before I answer the direct opinion or that kind of thing would be context. I'm looking not just for the context of their words, but additionally the concern, and I'm going to reach out with resonance and empathy as my first assumption.
Anyone else? Councilor Denham?
Thank you for being here tonight. How do you gain the trust of a divided community?
I think you gain the trust of a divided community through, and I mean personally, but of course as a body, but I mean for me, radical transparency, explaining one's thought process, simple and direct language, an assumption, reaching out in empathy, an assumption of good faith. I think that a person I disagree with or a divided community can engage with people they disagree with if those needs are met. And I think that a disagreement can still be a disagreement if thoughts are explained and if if members remember to not over-universalize their own experience, to not assume bad faith.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No one else? No? Yes? All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Heather's not here, but I just want to be clear with everybody. She's not here, but she's going to be in the ballot. And it's up to the member of the convention how to rank Heather. Sarah? Any school committee member? Goldstein? Oh, by the way, I just want to be clear with everybody and the rules. You made the questions. We're not going to start in the clock until you start talking. Okay. So that way you can process the question, and as soon as you start talking, that's what we did with Sean. So as soon as you start talking is when we start the clock.
That's very good for me to know. Thank you.
Again, thank you for everyone coming. I just want to first throw that out there. But for you, Sarah, again, given that you're chosen by this body to represent the Easthampton Public School District, the first task that you will have is to interview and vote on this interim superintendent. What is the most important quality that you are looking for in these candidates that'll help you make your decision?
I'd say the most important quality for me when interviewing candidates is their professionalism, their ability to adhere to established processes, to kind of communicate well. I think, obviously I want somebody who knows what they're doing, who has, had done educational administrative work in the past. I don't know that anybody would apply for this job who hadn't been involved in that capacity. So aside from that, I'd say professionalism and good communication skills.
Councilor Riley?
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Sarah, thank you for your opening statement. And, I feel really great about the amount of experience that you have to be able to hit the ground running. So here's a specific question that I have. So beyond just the search process that's occurred in Easthampton, we actually see across the state of Massachusetts a severe deficiency in the capabilities and abilities and behaviors of superintendents in Massachusetts to be able to be effective leaders. Easthampton is not alone in having complex dialogues around who ought to be a superintendent. So my question to you is that there are applicants who are not current superintendents. What are your thoughts on taking into consideration individuals who are not superintendents that actually could be coming up from within school systems, and your ability to be able to take those candidates seriously? Because I just feel like at this point, the state lacks qualified superintendents to be able to do the job that I think Easthampton needs.
Thank you. I agree with you. I think if you look at any district who has done a superintendent search in the last 5 to 10 years in Western Massachusetts in particular, there's a lot of turnover, there's controversy. I think rarely is the entire community super excited about the superintendent that they end up hiring. And I want to be really careful, because there is like the possibility that I'll sort of become this person's boss. So I don't want to be like, hey, this is a crappy job, and like you probably don't want it coming right out the bat. So I guess what I'm saying is I think you're right. I think those are are good concerns. I don't have a problem with people coming up from the school or coming up with different types of administrative experiences. There's lots of different types of administrative experiences in schools. People can be principals, people can be special education directors or pupil services directors. We've had a superintendent, Nancy Follensby, when I was on the school committee, who started her career as a reading instructor. So, I do think that generally oh, sorry, I thought that was the timer. Is it? That is the timer. I was like, it's either a timer or it's like an emergency outside.
Yeah.
But yes, I hear your question. I understand it. I don't have a problem with internal candidates. And I also do want people to apply for this job, even if we all talk about how bad it is.
Thank you. Councilor Peak.
Thanks, sir. You're one of two people, to my knowledge, applying tonight who has served on the school committee before. So I guess I would just, I know this is a tough thing to wrap up in a minute answer, but what would you say you learned from your last stint or what's one thing that you would say you learned from your last stint on the school committee that you might approach differently this time around, having that experience?
I think I don't even have to think about this one. I would approach the media a little bit differently. I think at the last time I served on school committee, there were some times where members of the press reached out to me, and I honestly, because of my other job at the time, I was a social worker. I'm not anymore. I was so afraid to speak in case any of my families or any of the folks that I worked with heard me speaking, and that affected our relationship, and it really kind of scared me. And it's one of the reasons I didn't end up running again, because I felt like I couldn't be a good school committee member to this community and be the type of leader we needed, and also have that other job. That's no longer my role, so I'm less conflicted about that now. So I think that is definitely one thing I would do differently. The other thing I would do differently is I was actually looking to see when they're offering the charting the course training again, because I would like to get that in, even if I have to go to the Cape in 3 weeks to do it, which seems to be my only opportunity before September. But I'd like a refresher on the procedures and policies, open meeting law, all of that.
Time again.
You need a less scary one.
That's scary.
Gets your attention.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Same question.
I could keep going.
No. How do you? From me, same question for me. How do you build trust within a divided community?
I think looking for common ground, I honestly, I think that the internet, this is like a Facebook town. This has always been, ever since I moved here, a very Facebook-centered town. One of the things I like about it, because I spend a lot of time on the internet, so it's been easy for me to find free things that I need and connect with people. I've made lots of friends that way in this town. But I think one of the challenges with a town that's so focused on social media is that we miss a lot of the opportunities to have more nuanced discussion and to find common ground. And I really do think there's a lot more common ground between people in this town than it looks. So I would say listening and looking for common ground between different perspectives, kind of predictable adherence to expected processes, and also not getting bogged down in drama. I feel like it's really easy to kind of just blow things up and kind of lose sight of what we're actually talking about, and everything gets very big and meta. And I think it's important to just focus on what is the actual topic, where can we find common ground in that, and maybe setting less scary timers.
Yeah. Thank you.
First one that comes up.
Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Catherine? Any of the members have any questions? Catherine? Yep.
Let's see if this one's less scary.
No, it's okay. You might have to go ding, ding, ding.
School committee member Goldstein?
Question to you again. Thank you for coming. So again, given that you're chosen by this body to represent Easthampton Public Schools, and your first task is to interview and vote on the superintendent, what is the most important quality that you will look for in these candidates to decide your vote?
So I think one of the most important things that I would be looking for in this candidate would be someone who could address supervision issues with high-level administrators. I think that is, as a supervisor myself, supervising staff is one of the most challenging jobs I've ever had. And addressing challenging issues with high-level administrators, I think would be one thing that I would ask of them, and what experience they've had with conflict with people they've supervised.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Beak.
Thank you, Catherine. You had brought up that you've worked in developmental services and after-school programs. Is there a particular program or policy change that, from your experience, you would feel like advocating for if you were to end up in this position?
One of the things that I've heard from many parents over my 30 years as an educational advocate is no matter how much emphasis we put on kids being welcomed into the school, most kids with disabilities are bullied at some point. And I think that programs addressing bullying, particularly of children with special needs, I think is one key area that I would like to see addressed.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Denham.
Thanks for being here. How do you build trust within a divided community?
I think one way to build trust is to listen, to understand that we're not always going to agree and that it's okay to disagree, and to understand that everyone should have a voice. And many people out there feel like they're the lone voice in the wilderness, and we need to help them have a voice.
Thank you. School Committee Member Hersey.
Thank you. You had mentioned that families are not feeling heard, and I agree with that in some ways, and I'm wondering, like, what kinds of steps would you take to try to work on that issue?
So one thing that I found really helpful when running family support programs was to have family support meetings and meet with parents, or have an open door policy to have people, whether it be parents or other stakeholders, come talk to me about programmatic issues they wanted me to address and concerns they had about my staff. So I would like to be able to sit with them and be available to them to just walk in and have a conversation with me.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Laura? School Committee Member Goldstein.
Thank you again for being here. So again, same question that I've asked before. Given that you are chosen by this body to represent Easthampton Public Schools, one of the first tasks that you will have is to help interview and vote on the interim superintendent. And so what is the number one quality that you'd be looking for from these candidates to help you make your decision and vote for it?
Okay, that's tough for a 1-minute response. I'll condense it to say this. I would say the top priority is competency. I've worked a lot in prior jobs in the position of interviewing, hiring, firing, and managing. A great interview does not always make a great candidate. A terrible interview doesn't always make a terrible candidate. So doing your best to assess the breadth of someone's experience, the feedback you receive from the people who know them well professionally, I think you measure that competency, and in a role like a superintendent, you weigh that up against the level of their own profound self-awareness, their ability to recognize their strengths and weaknesses, and tailor that to fit our distinct needs in our community. We have some really standout administrators in support positions, so I think you would have to weigh their competency, those strengths and weaknesses, up against the support staff they would be walking into.
Anyone else? Councilor Beak.
I would like to ask you the same question that I asked Sarah, but just to rephrase, or to just restate it, you've been a school committee member before. What would you take away from that experience in terms of, like, how would you approach it differently this time around?
I think Sarah's assessment of the Facebooky social media-ness of this city is correct. I think it is more apparent now. So I think my lesson would be, as it is in all areas of my life in the past 10 years, you don't take these issues personally. They are important. I care about them personally, but you can't take the public criticism and feedback personally. I think someone mentioned an assumption of good faith. I think that's important. I think being measured, steady, consistent, and giving everybody that opportunity to share their opinions and assume that they are working in good faith the way that I am.
Anyone else? Councilor Denham?
Thanks for being here. How do you build trust in a divided community?
Again, 1 minute, seriously. Okay. I think a lot of it in this city, it piggybacks on what I just said. It is about steadiness. It is about thinking before one responds. It is about listening rather than rehearsing in one's brain how they'll react to any statement. And really having equity in how you treat all of the stakeholders in the community. I have close relationships with many, but I wouldn't want it to be viewed that I give favor to anyone over another. Assume everyone operates in good faith, hear everything openly and honestly, and be prepared to defend your decisions and your statements. It's a lot easier to do when you're careful, thoughtful, measured. Thank you. Yeah.
Councilor Rist?
Oh.
Laura, thank you for being on this evaluation. I am very happy that your experience is available to the convention and that you are putting yourself out there. One of the things that I wanted to ask was if you could, well, Tom Peake already put forward what you could do differently, but if you had to advocate for anything, and I know this is another 1 minute answer, could you advocate for a programming in Easthampton that you wish we could afford to do, or you wish the school committee would do better at?
1 minute is tough. Here's my pitch. One thing that I felt I left unfinished in my prior 2 terms was an increased emphasis on multi-generational community building. And I think what I've seen in my son's experiences in the district, one that had an IEP and dealt with special needs, one that was neurotypical, was that a kind of common thread in accessibility for them and blossoming and growing was the music department. So I would be interested when and if resources were available. I've done some outside research on grant funding. For those of you who know me, it comes as no surprise, that we have access to funding to do something like a multi-generational music program beginning at the elementary level, and that it could also access the talents of local folks, seniors in the community, professional musicians, and whatnot. So, I mean, first things first, we would have to finalize a budget. We've got to deal with an interim superintendent issue, but, as I'm cruising into the fall, if I were selected, I would perhaps maybe drop some notes about that grant funding on anyone's desk. And, oh, that's a gentle alarm.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Any other members? Seeing none, thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Timothy?
You took it well.
Hi, Timothy. Thank you for coming. Again, same question. Given that you're chosen by this body to represent Easthampton Public Schools, your first task will be to interview and vote on the interim superintendent. What is the most important quality that you will look for that will help you determine the best candidate and how to decide your vote?
Sure. Pardon me. So it's obviously incredibly difficult to have a singular quality that would be, to me, like the primary quality. That would, I would think that there's a list of qualities. It's, humility and self-awareness are important. A good grasp on the material that is available and that is being applied and how it's being applied and kind of the human effect of it. And I think that, again, that's an in-room thing. It's better in-room than on paper. And you can get you can get a really good sense of someone on paper, I believe. But you can be surprised in a room. And there were, in my opinion, there were a lot of significantly talented people that we had an opportunity to meet. And so for me, I would look forward to seeing what the next pool would bring forward.
And that's time. The chimes didn't go off.
Hey, no, that's a good one. I like that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yep.
Councilor Peak?
Thanks, Timothy, for putting your name forward. In your opening remarks, you had mentioned having felt some trepidations about coming forward and the sort of the public exposure that would inevitably mean for you and your family. How do you feel? What would be your strategy for addressing that and remaining and remaining functional under those that scrutiny?
Sure. Well, I don't know that what I was expressing was necessarily other than awareness of it. It was and a reticence to wade into it. It's not a fear of it, I guess. So, and I don't want to seem dismissive in saying that, because you all have dealt with it firsthand. I wouldn't say, the easiest thing to say is that I just wouldn't really acknowledge it, or wouldn't feed into it, or I would ignore it, or I would choose not to click on it. I would choose not to open the things or read the things. But I would manage them. I would discuss them with my family and the people that I care about. And there would be surrounded by a lot of love, and there'd be a lot of reinforcement. And I think maybe, I don't know, you pull the shades down just a little bit more, and I guess you just kind of, you circle the wagons and you stay with your group.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Dillon?
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate it. How do you build trust in a divided community?
Yeah, how do you build trust in a divided community? You trust your community. That's the best that I can really say or do. You show up, you go out, you make yourself present. I coach a couple teams, and I gain a lot from a lot of different styles of family, a lot of different groups of people, and they surprise me with the connections that they're willing to make, and once you get past that wall that everybody carries around, maybe not everybody, but most people carry around. Once you get past that wall, you find some really delightful people and some really wonderful things on the other side. People who are much like yourself, they want a lot of the same things that you do, and we just go about them, getting them different ways sometimes. And sometimes we also interpret the way people carry themselves and the way that people are in our community, or the way that we see them. We interpret that,
That's time.
Yeah, and we're often incorrect.
School committee member Hersey?
Thank you. I was just curious if there were any particular issues or projects or concerns you'd want to speak to or sort of advocate for going forward if you were selected.
Well, without coming across as I'm proposing criticisms, I'm not pointing out flaws. I'd like to see smaller classrooms. I'd like to see better ratios. I'd like so that the teachers would be more capable of having more of applying their effect more directly to groups of students. It would make everyone's lives a little easier. And as I heard earlier, their working conditions are the learning conditions of the school, and I agree with that. And any of the times that we have volunteered in the school, we've noticed that it's a big school. There's a lot. It's a big school, and there's a lot to adapt to. And so for me, I guess I think that seeing that the school was staffed appropriately, to get the best possible experience for every student.
Anyone else? So thank you. Albert? Goldstein.
Good evening. Thank you again for putting yourself forward. Same question. Given that you're chosen by this body to represent the Easthampton Public Schools, your first task will be to interview and vote on the interim superintendent. What is the most important quality that you will look for in these candidates to help you decide your vote?
So for a candidate, I look for their broader leadership skills. And some of those qualities involve, as I've said before, critical thinking, financial intelligence, and then problem solving. But I think the most important one is problem solving, because you're going to get hit with a multitude of issues and questions and dilemmas. And if that person can think through those, then everything can fall into place. They can start to say, okay, well, what's the priority here? And let's move forward in that. Make the decision, implement it, monitor it, and then at the very end, find out, okay, did that work? Did it go in the direction that we wanted to? And if not, then let's reassess that. And then with that kind of structure in mind, you can continue that process, and it'll go and it'll show. So.
Thank you.
I call that the stroll.
Anyone else? Councilor Peak.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. You've got a lot of leadership experience that you mentioned, but I'd like to hear, within the context of a minute, a little bit more about sort of what your vision would be within the schools in terms of, like, I know it's a short term, but if you had a chance to really advocate for a policy or a change in the way that things are done, or a program that you'd like to see, anything broadly like that, what would be the one thing in this short time that you'd really want to advocate for?
I agree with the other candidate that music is such an important aspect, and I think that has kind of slipped away, and it's just such an important way to express, and it's a part of the liberal arts that just seems to lose funding, as many other things, but for me, that's just important. That's very important.
Thank you.
Simply put.
Anyone else? Councilor Denham.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. How do you build trust in a divided community?
That's a two-faceted approach I would take, is really listen to the community. And so on that note, in my mind, I go, I'd love to reach out to high school students, and especially the ones that are about to graduate, that are going to soon be the leaders, that look to us as adults as those role models. So reach out to them, listen to them, the stakeholders, that is the parents and the taxpayers, listen to them, what are your concerns and needs? And then transparency. What are those things that we're doing, and just lay them out there as simply as possible so that they can see what we're doing.
Thank you.
Anyone else? See none? Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda? School committee member Goldstein.
Same question.
Same question. So thank you for being here. Given that you're chosen by this body to represent the Easthampton Public Schools, your first task will be to interview the interim superintendent and vote for their position. So what would be the most important quality that you will look to from these candidates, and how will you help make your vote?
For quality, I would want someone who was compassionate and caring and would actually listen to people and respond to them. People would be emailing you, calling you, and make sure that they hear what the people are asking or suggesting, and show some compassion and empathy to people. I mean, we all have challenges in our lives, and you need to show some empathy. That's what I think.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Denham?
How do you build trust in a divided community?
I think it's possible to do it. I think the transparency issue is a big factor. You need to be transparent with what you're doing, and I think part of, like what I said, with the empathy and listening and showing that you care and that you're gonna try to help people with whatever they're requesting. I mean, some things, maybe they're a little off the wall to other people, but it's important to them. So let them know that you're gonna work with them or try to come up with a solution. Maybe it's not gonna be exactly what they want, but if you show that you care and that you're trying, be honest. That's it, be honest.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Riley?
Thank you, Mr. President. So my question to you focuses around the school committee policy manual. There are nearly 300, I want to say, at least several hundred individual policies that guide the work that the school committee does. And, I think arguably being a member of the school committee is one of the most difficult positions to hold within our community. And it can take a great deal of an entire term to really understand the complexity and the nuance of all of these policies. That's not an opportunity that is afforded to any of these applicants who need to jump into this position and will have basically months to onboard. So my question to you is this. Have you seen the school committee policy manual? And if not, what policy analysis experience do you have that would be able to help you onboard in the most efficient and expedient way? Thank you.
That's a great question, but I'm just kind of wondering why I'm the only one that was asked that. I'm just wondering, other
Councilor
people
Riley,
were
you want to answer
asked.
that?
Pardon me?
Okay, I didn't know if I could answer. Can I, Mr. President?
If you want, you don't have to.
So listen, there are folks who have varying degrees of experience. And there are some that I'm more interested in and some that I'm more concerned about.
Sure.
And I think this is a specific challenge that if I'm going to rank an individual more high on the list, I would like to know, specifically what the experience is with this type of work. And if I can just kind of generalize a little bit, I think one of the biggest critiques that the community has had over this recent superintendent policy is that the critique was that things weren't necessarily done the most appropriate way, or, something should have been done differently. And I think to kind of humanize the school committee members and to humble the public is that there really are hundreds of policies that need to be taken into consideration on a daily basis. And it's very easy to make mistakes. And right now we need individuals who can jump into this school committee and to be able to prevent mistakes from happening. And then this is just a concern that I have for individuals who don't have school committee experience.
Okay, so
Before you answer, I just want to clarify to everybody that was the rules that we set at the first meeting. Councilors and school committee member was allowed to make individual questions to any candidate. That was the rule that we set, and they have the rights to do so.
Correct.
I just want to remind you again, if as soon as you start talking, answering his questions, we're going to give you a minute. If you use it just to go back and forward, that means it's going to be expired.
Okay, got it. My answer would be, as I stated in my previous speech, that I take this very seriously and I would take the time and the energy needed and give it all that I have. Do I know all the policies? Absolutely not. I've never been on a school committee. I've talked to them. I've been on the superintendent search, and I take it seriously. I have seen some things that I know or I feel are not right that have happened, and I want things to be corrected. And I would read policies. I don't think I would just spew things out that I have no knowledge of and hope that they're right. I wouldn't do that.
Thank you. Anyone else? School committee member Megan.
I was really interested in something you said. I jotted down that you are interested in how an interim superintendent can bring the community together. And I wondered if you had any additional thoughts to add to that. Like, what do you think would...
Together, like, in equity and having the teachers, the students, the parents, getting everybody involved, making it cohesive and have open communication between everyone.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
You mentioned that all students have a right to support, which I think is a great idea, and I'm just curious, from the position of the school committee, specifically, what kinds of things would you want to do to build support for students in the community?
I think that there should be, are you talking like with a class or just in, I'm not supposed to, is that part of my minute?
Can you clarify the question?
Sure. There's a lot of ways, I think, to think about the question, but I am also an advocate for students, and I'm very much interested in making sure that students are heard and as well as seen. And I'm just curious, from the school committee position, what would you want to do to help bring in students or help support students in whatever way you see fit?
I would want to make sure that they are in the correct classes and that, and like with special ed, that we have enough that we need. We have teachers and programs and do whatever it takes. I know there's budgets and you have to work within them, but I would want to see every child get support that they needed. So once they're in 12th grade, they can graduate and make a life for themselves.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Luis? School committee member Goldstein.
Thank you again for coming. So, same question. Given that you're chosen by this body to represent Easthampton Public Schools, your first task will be to interview and vote on the interim superintendent. What is the most important quality that you'll be looking for to help you make a decision on these candidates and decide your vote?
Kind of their experience and the diversity of their experience. Because what keeps going through my head is something a few years ago, and I'm trying not to identify the person, but somebody in a position of authority, something we were asking for, and they said, this is not Easthampton. And I'll just leave it right there, but say, I'd be looking for somebody who had 5 ideas about how other places did it, some fresh thinking, open-mindedness, critical thinking, problem solving, this kind of thinking for themselves, which I suppose featured in my written application. Sorry, I can't give you one word, but I think there's.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Councilor Denham?
Thanks for being here. How do you build trust in a divided community?
And I just know, how to put it, sort of opening doors. And that sounds, okay, a little not specific, but first I saw somebody, and I'm sorry, this was social media. I'm reading what people say, but there's one that stuck with me. I can't even remember where. And it was how isolated the schools are. And it was something I felt from the beginning. I mean, our kids and, our school system is going to reflect tensions in the community. That's going to happen. Well, this person said, and I remember feeling this before the pandemic, if you're not a student, a teacher, staff member, or a parent, it's a closed door. Absolutely. And it really is. I mean, I talked to the new EHS principal when he was doing his listening tour, and I was very new. And I said, okay, if I get an idea or something, I have a question, can I reach you? How can I reach you? And I then had a question, but I was more testing it. So anyway, what he said both about emails and all didn't work. I'm sorry, I totally had a little.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thanks, Luis.
Councilor Peak?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was acknowledged.
Go ahead. No, I was looking the other way for Councilor Peak.
Thanks, Luis. I asked this question of a few people, but in the short time that is the remainder of this term, if was a policy or a program or an idea that you really wanted to push for, what would that be?
I only have 1 minute, so I'm not going to be able to choose. So either music, which has been mentioned.
I'm sorry, can you start again?
Either music or something for special ed, because everybody I've talked to, see, there has to be some way we can deliver that doesn't cost a fortune. I mean, the sort of fortune that just means it would bankrupt. And I'll just leave it at that. And I would like to poll the kids themselves. What is it they want? I mean, we might not be able to take the next step of doing anything, but we'd get answers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Thank you.
Thank you all.
I want to say one more time, thank you everybody for being here tonight. I think we break all the records because I was expecting being here until later. So that was pretty good. I will encourage all 9 candidates, including the person who didn't show up today, reach us, call us, email us, text us, talk to the community to reach us too, to let us know who is going to be the best person to sit at the school committee. I really encourage you to do that. We are the people who's going to vote for you. You should reach in us and talk to us to convince us that you are the best candidate. The next meeting is going to be May 31st at 6 p.m. at the chambers. We're going to vote, and all the votes are going to be public. Just want to be clear with everybody. The votes are going to be public. We're not making any decisions behind doors or secret votes. It's public. So please participate, show up, and we're going to be here. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have motion and second to adjourn. Barbara?
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski. Tom Peak.
Aye.
Ed Riley.
Yes.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Owen Zaret.
Aye.
Maren Goldstein.
Aye.
Megan Harvey.
Yeah, aye.
Ben Hersey. Cindy Kuzensky. Connie Dunham.
Motion passes. Have a wonderful evening. See you, Brad. See you. Guys.
Thank you, everybody.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.